Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. Should you replace the stock cooler from a Ryzen 5 2600X with something more powerful for either stock XFR2 auto overclocking or manual overclocking? In today's video, we're going to take a look at just that. I have this CPU installed on the Asus ROG Strix X470-F motherboard, a very nice premium $200 board that excels at overclocking. And we're going to compare the stock cooler to this very nice Cooler Master Liquid 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler, gaming and non-gaming benchmarks coming right up. Before we get to that, I want to talk to you briefly about Floatplane. Floatplane is the monthly subscription-only service hosted by Linus Media Group. For $3 per month, you get ad-free viewing, downloadable videos, early access videos. Many of these videos you're looking at right here are not yet on YouTube. They will be, but they're not yet. You get both of the Tech Deals channels, Tech Deals and Tech Deals Gaming, and exclusive videos. Visit to the Microsoft Store, our visit to the Tesla Model X, that's my daughter sitting right there. Those are not main channel videos, but those will never be on YouTube. And then, of course, a bunch of benchmarks and some other things that you otherwise would not see. Now, there are other content creators there. Each one is $3 a month, and it directly supports the creators. So if you want ad-free access, if you want early access, downloadable videos, and if you want to know that you're supporting Tech Deals, please consider signing up using the link down in the video description below. All of the benchmarks you're about to see were run on this open-air test bench in a 22°C ambient room on this motherboard using both this cooler and the Cooler Master Liquid 240 using Cooler Master's thermal paste. 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 megahertz RAM was installed. It's the G.Skill FlareX memory CL14, very good stuff. And then we also have an RX 580 from MSI, their Gaming X model, running at its stock out-of-the-box speed of 1380 megahertz. Windows is updated to the latest version of Windows as of the first week, August 2018, as are all the AMD drivers, which were downloaded from AMD's site, and Windows is installed on an M.2 Crucial MX500 SSD. Before we start, I do want to clear something up regarding some misconceptions over stock coolers. If you have never used one of the modern Ryzen stock coolers, let me show you an Intel stock cooler next to the Wraith Spire. If you have read online on messages or forums or heard, oh, nobody uses stock coolers, doesn't everybody replace those things? You probably were hearing about Intel stock coolers, not the Ryzen coolers. These are substantially better. 95 watt TDP, it has a real copper core slug on the bottom. No, it's not as good as a liquid cooler. No, it's not as good as a Hyper 212 Evo, but it is much, much better than the cheap piece of aluminum that is on the Intel cooler. So before you dismiss the stock cooler outright, you might want to watch this and give it a chance. What this video will not do is compare the noise profile of the stock cooler to this specific liquid cooler. This is a representative cooler of all the 240mm liquid coolers. I've used other brands. It's very similar in performance. If you want silent fans, get a Noctua or a Be Quiet fan. Even if you buy a cooler such as this, replace the fans with those. They are much quieter, but performance-wise, it'll be about the same. And with that being said, let me show you some benchmark charts. The first chart I want to show you is the temperature. This is AIDA64 stress test with the top 4 boxes checked. Your eyes do not deceive you. The CPU temp, as reported by AIDA64, really is this much cooler with the Master Liquid 240. 65 degrees C versus 46 degrees C. That is a huge temperature difference. Please note, the system is completely stable at both temperatures with both coolers, but it is much, much cooler running with the Cooler Master. This next chart is very important and frankly will explain the rest of the results. At full AIDA64 stress testing at stock speeds, we got 3.8 gigahertz on the Wraith Spire cooler, 4.1 gigahertz on the Cooler Master Liquid 240. No, your eyes do not deceive you. The CPU was actually running 300 megahertz faster. Absolutely stock settings in the BIOS, no overclocking. Everything was set to auto except the DDR4 RAM, which was set to DOCP in the Asus BIOS, but everything else was left at auto. It really is a 300 megahertz jump, and that's the XFR2 extended frequency range auto overclocking with a lower temperature floor The CPU is running faster without you having to do anything. Cinebench R15 is one of the most multi-threaded tests you can find. 1329 versus 1409 stock settings. That is a nice performance jump by just replacing your cooler. Having said that, it's worth noting it's a 6% performance difference. Is it worth buying a 240mm liquid cooler to get 6% more multi-threaded performance? That's a personal choice, but that's a lot of money to spend for a 6% jump. When we run the CPU-Z benchmarks, you can see here that the performance is very close, but again, it's still faster at using the liquid cooler. This does not, however, translate to as large of a performance difference as Cinebench, 2.7% and 3.9% respectively for single and multi-threaded runs. Here you have more of the same from the 7-zip benchmark. The 240mm liquid cooler wins because we have more clock speed and we're running a pure multi-threaded test. How much that translates to a real percentage difference? 3%, 5.7%, and 4.4% respectively. Before you all rush out and buy a 240mm liquid cooler, let me point out to you that a 5-minute compression operation that takes 300 seconds on the Wraith Spire cooler will take 291 seconds on a 240mm liquid cooler. You're saving 9 seconds across a 5-minute operation. Is that really worth the cost? Moving on to game test, we have Ghost Recon Wildlands. On the left-hand side of the screen, we are running with the Wraith Spire cooler, and on the right-hand side of the screen, we're running with the 240mm liquid cooler. The only real differences you'll see here, besides the fact that I'm in a different area of the game, playing with different vehicles, I understand that affects it, we'll talk about that. But the only real difference is the CPU clock speed. With the Wraith Spire cooler, we're getting just over 4 GHz. Now, unlike the multi-threaded stress test that you just saw, because we're not using 100% of the CPU, then the CPU can auto-overclock itself a bit more. We're actually at 4.05 GHz for most of this, bouncing around between that and 4 GHz even. On the right-hand side, we're bouncing between 4.2 and 4.25 GHz, which is actually faster than it ever ran on the multi-threaded test because, again, we're not using 100%. We're using about half of it, or about 6 cores, but we're not really using the hyper-threading all that much. Now, when you actually look at the frame rate chart, which I'll show you in just a second, and even this real-time performance, which actually explains the chart, what you will notice is that the performance of the game is dependent upon your graphics card and where you're playing far more than it is the CPU. It is true that there are CPU-bound games. It is true there are games that care far much more about your CPU than your graphics card. Not this one. And most AAA games are going to be graphics card limited. I fully understand that some people would say, why not put a GTX 1080 Ti in here to remove as much graphics performance to make it purely CPU testing? I personally don't like those tests. Who puts a $750 video card on a mid-level CPU? I guess some people do, but I think that's a poor choice. Frankly, if you're going with a 1080 Ti, go with a Ryzen 7 2700X or an i7-8700K. A mid-level Ryzen 5 or i5 makes no sense for a top-of-the-line graphics card. And here's the benchmark results. The Wraith Spire was 66 frames per second average, and the Master Liquid 240 was 62 frames per second average. No, your eyes don't deceive you. The game does not care whether you're running 4.0 or 4.2 gigahertz. Look at the 1% lows. 42 and 48, it's reversed. This game cares about your graphics card first and your CPU second. With an RX 580 in here, the CPU doesn't make any difference whether it's either speed. You're limited by what you're doing in the game. I fully recognize that I could run the game's built-in benchmark, but then the results would just be matched because it only cares about the graphics card in that case. I understand wanting a faster computer. If you play games, buy a faster graphics card. An RX Vega 56 or a GTX 1070 Ti will have dramatic performance benefits in Ghost Recon Wildlands and most other games versus a faster CPU. Once you're remotely close to this level, more CPU doesn't make a big difference. If you're not playing games, if you're doing video encoding, rendering, 3D animation, if you're doing stuff that needs lots of CPU power, allow me to introduce you to a Ryzen 7 2700X. It's $100 more expensive than the 2600X. 8 cores, 16 threads. It comes with the upgraded Wraith Prism cooler. Now, while we did get more Cinebench multi-threaded performance by replacing the stock cooler on the 2600X with a 240mm liquid cooler, we gained 6%. Replacing the CPU with the 2700X gains 35%, 1803 in Cinebench R15 stock using the Wraith Prism cooler. If you really want more CPU performance, buy a faster CPU. In general, and there are exceptions, but in general, the only time I recommend aftermarket cooling is if you've already bought yourself the best CPU and you want even more performance. Also, everything else about your computer should already be top-notch. Spending $100 on a liquid cooler for your CPU when the rest of your components are mid-level makes no financial sense, and it's not the smart place to put your money. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with that big huge red button directly below, and hit the bell notification down below to be notified of my new videos. Otherwise, YouTube sends out very few notifications. The comment section down below, let me know what you think of this video, like it or dislike it, and then check the links in the video description. Links to everything I've discussed in this video, to Amazon and Newegg. Those are affiliate links. They do support the channel. If you like this content and you want to see more of it, please consider using those when shopping. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.